from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you this Wednesday evening. Our phone number, if you want to join our late-night national town hall conversation, feel free. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And it is a busy news day today. Which is good for us, right? We get to talk about lots of different things. And I just recorded an episode of my podcast, my beloved podcast. It's called This is America with Rich Valdez. And it's anywhere between a half hour and 45 minutes. And my commentary on some of the headlines that are going on over the last week. And the story that I started with was this horrific crime story out of Alabama. And I'm going to get to that in one moment. I just want to go over some of the headlines of today first before I kind of delve into that story. In case you haven't heard, Nikki Haley is out of the presidential race. Listen to this.
I sought the honor of being your president. But in our great country, being a private citizen is privilege enough in itself. And that's a privilege I very much look forward to enjoying. In all likelihood, Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee when our party convention meets in July. I congratulate him and wish him well. I wish anyone well who would be America's president. Our country is too precious to let our differences divide us. I have always been a conservative Republican and always supported the Republican nominee. But on this question, as she did on so many others, Margaret Thatcher provided some good advice when she said, quote, never just follow the crowd. Always make up your own mind. It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him. And I hope he does that. At its best, politics is about bringing people into your cause, not turning them away. And our conservative cause badly needs more people. This is now his time for choosing.
You know, what I first thing I think here is I hear Nikki Haley giving this speech, and I ask myself, does she sound like a president? Did that sound presidential to you? It didn't to me. It sounded bitter. And I'm tired of asking her to come on this program. I have a lot of respect for her, and I think she's a nice person, but come on. Like, what is this entire about face? Really? You know, she was happy to be Trump's U.S. ambassador. She was happy when she left the job as ambassador to say, you know, no, I would not run against him if he was running, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, she talked a lot of smack. And then you come out. Let this be a lesson for Michelle Obama, right? Who says that I'm not running. And then later she's potentially going to come out and say, okay, I'm running. I had to do it to save America. Listen. I don't think it goes over well. I mean, maybe it does. Who knows? Maybe I'm totally wrong there. But I don't think people like that type of non-committal stuff. People like people who are committed to something. Whether you're insane or you're a genius. No matter what it is, be committed to something. Don't vacillate. Don't sit on the edge. Pick a side. Right? I mean, what's the point? Imagine, you know, your favorite team, and they make it to whatever the final competitive event is, Super Bowl, World Series, whatever. And you ask one of the players, you know, how do you feel about the game tonight? And instead of saying, oh, my God, we're going to crush it, we're looking forward to, you know, clinching this thing, we're going to win championship. No, they say, look, nobody wants non-committal people. You have to be committed to something. You have to believe in something, right? If you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And Nikki Haley's speech to me was very, very lacking. It left much to be desired. Honestly, did. Instead of saying, hey, look, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm going to support Trump, right? That was one of the RNC rules, that if you were going to be on in the debates and whatever, you had to endorse whoever won. She didn't want to do it. Now, Trump also said he didn't want to do it, and I understand. But come on, why wouldn't you do it? It's because you were never in it for the party, right? This is a party process for anybody who's wondering. A Republican nomination is a Republican Party function. Very turned off. Very turned off. More than I was yesterday. I had not heard the entirety of that clip till right now. So, Nikki Haley, shame on you, honestly. Then to cite Reagan and then to say it's up to Trump to win those votes. Obviously, he won the votes. That's why you only won one contest last night, the one that Democrats could vote in. Stop being a wolf in sheep's clothing. I'm glad you're out of the race. You should run as a Democrat. You might do better. Unbelievable. Anyway, 354,000 Democrats cast their vote for the Democrat primary and caucuses yesterday. And those 354,000 all voted for uncommitted, right? That's a protest vote against Joe Barboso Biden. Now, of course, he did well and all the rest of them. He's a sitting president running for re-election. But bottom line here, that's a lot of people that are unhappy with Biden, saying they're not committed to what they're going to do with these delegates. Joe, no bueno. Let's see, what else we got here? My crime story. Yeah, so listen to this. This is a very sad story. I want to get to it quickly. Police in Alabama are reporting that 8 suspects recorded the kidnapping, torture, and rape of an Alabama mom before killing her. She was only 25 years old and left behind a 3-year-old baby. I mean, and all of the suspects are 25 years old or younger. 8 of them. 8 young people. They lured this girl. Her name's Mahogany Jackson. I'm sorry, she's 20 years old, not 25, 20. 20 years old. They beat her. They forced her to perform sex acts at gunpoint. They pistol whipped her with a gun. This is all according to testimony from Detective Mark Green in court. The mother of one of them arrived at the, the mother of one, the young lady, 20-year-old Mahogany Jackson, she arrived at the home of one of the suspects. He's 24 years old. And shortly before she was raped and eventually murdered, she was beaten. She was there's video showing her outside being beaten by the 2 other girls. She's stark naked, getting beaten by 2 other girls. Then they bring her inside, and the rest of them take their turns tying her up, beating her, threatening her. They even posted some of the rape scenes on social media. I mean, these people are beyond stupid, but more than stupid, they're evil. And that was really why I wanted to talk about this. Otherwise, it's very dark, and I don't like these types of stories. All I could say is, but for God, right? That's the only thing you've got going here. In a moment like that, where you're faced with seeing the end of your life is flashing before your very eyes. All you've got is God. And that's what those people didn't have. And I don't care what people say. The more godless our society becomes, the more heinous acts like these we see. And that's the bottom line. I know there's people out there that think they can be super duper atheists, and good for them. I'm sure there's a lot of people there that could care less about Jesus, but they believe in the 10 Commandments as universal truths. Good. I support that. I think they should like Jesus, but that's fine. That's my angle. I think ultimately the universality of not killing people and respecting your parents and loving your neighbor, and that's not a commandment, loving your neighbor, but it's not a 10 Commandment. It's one of the 2 commandments of the New Testament. But it's a good commandment nonetheless, right? Love God, love people. That's it. I mean, come on. Jeez. This is heartbreaking. It's a 20-year-old girl. Again, you guys know I have a 22-year-old and an 18-year-old. 20 falls right in the middle. This could have been my kid. Heartbreaking to see this happen. Heartbreaking. And obviously she knew these people because they suckered her into going. Anyway, we're going to continue our discussion on all of the news of the day. Not so much on this story. I think I've pretty much nailed it. If you want to hear more about it, though, I go into the article in depth on This Is America, which you can get on all of the podcast platforms. Make sure you subscribe to that. That would help me out a lot, and I would appreciate it. And we're also going to talk about a few things tonight. There's a few things that I want to get into that I think are appropriate. One of them is what is going on at the border. We've got some crazy border stuff. We're going to get to that at the bottom of the hour with the former chief of staff of the Department of Homeland Security. And in addition to that, I want to talk about a real like American success story, you know, just how people make it. You know, so every now and again you hear about somebody who comes from a tough background and is able to make it and really thrive in life. And I love to hear from people like that because they inspire me, and I hope they inspire you. Ultimately, I think we need those stories in our lives, right? We need to hear those things. That's how we build one another up. And we don't end up like these 8 savages that killed this 20-year-old girl who left behind her own little girl. Just sad all around. And then I want to switch gears and talk about being fat. I was fat for a long time, 270 pounds, and I'm not 6'5", so, you know, I did wear it well, I was told, but it weighs on you, literally, pun intended, and it wears on you. And ultimately, it's very bad for your health. So we're going to talk about obesity and healthy living and how often are we weighing ourselves, and is that important? There's a lot of interesting developments in the world of weight loss right now with all these different injections that are out there for diabetes management that have a side effect of weight loss. And some people are abusing those drugs. And we've talked about that before. That's not necessarily what we're going to talk about, but it's part of what's in the news. So I want to get, some reaction to that as well. And, of course, tons of political news that are out there, headlines that we can and will address, plus your phone calls, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Amigos, we are discussing what's going on, and I love to always shed a little light on one of my favorite journalists from MSNBC, Joy Ann Reid. And Joy Reid on the readout on MSNBC yesterday, she said that Republicans, let me see the context here. It was basically Republicans are, they're coming out in droves to vote because they don't vote about issues or the economy or anything like that. They vote based on race. Listen to this.
Chris Hayes, I think, made a really excellent point that you're seeing this sort of disconnect between a president that is a white working class guy himself and that keeps doing all of these things that disproportionately benefit white working class Americans in red states, and their reaction to him is they hate him more, like the more he does. And it is because the most economically vulnerable voters tend to be young voters who tend to be more voters of color. They're economically vulnerable, and they tend to hold the president to account if they can't afford their lives or can't pay their student loans. They vote that way. But Republican voters don't vote that way. They don't vote based on economics or based on the benefits they're getting economically from the president. They're increasingly, from the Tea Party on, they're voting on race. They're voting on this idea of an invasion of brown people over the border. The idea that they can't get whatever job they want. A black person got it, therefore drive all the blacks out of the colleges, get rid of DEI. That is what they're voting on. They're just voting specifically on racial animus. At this stage, it isn't about economics.
No, which is why Trump killed the immigration bill.
Correct.
Did any of that make any sense? I guess I don't possess the level of knowledge and intelligence to understand what she was saying, but I'm going to try and make sense of that. So it starts with people are dissatisfied with where they are economically, so these young voters are holding Biden to account because she's blaming them for not doing well in life, but I say it's the economy's fault, and that's their fault, right? So she says, okay, the young voters, young Democrats are holding Biden to account because of the economy. Check. But Republicans are benefiting from Biden's economic policies, and they still don't like him. True. I stand to have my student loans paid off, right? I'm not looking to get them paid off. I haven't applied to get them paid off. It's some sort of random type of thing from what I understand. I totally intend to pay my own loans. But if the government is willing to say I don't owe anymore, I'm not going to, say no. And you can't anyway. And there's no, excuse me, I'd like to pay my own. As far as I saw when I was on the website, I didn't see anything about that. So my point is, I stand to benefit from that one policy of Biden's, and I'm not going to vote for Biden. And I happen to be a person of color, brown, as she says, part of the invasion. And what I find fascinating about this is that Joy Reid makes it seem like I'm supposed to vote for Biden because he's going to forgive a loan that I agreed to take. I mean, thank you, sir. And thank you all of my fellow Americans listening and not listening that are going to bear the brunt of that in one way or another. But ultimately, that makes no sense to me. I'm not voting for Biden because I don't like his policies, because he's giving the House away, right? Now, she also says they are complaining that blacks are taking jobs that they could have. I've never met a white person that said a black person took his job. I thought the whole thing was that it's racist. So the whites get all the jobs and the blacks don't get any, right? Or Hispanics, we don't get any. I thought that was how this whole thing worked. But she says that the whites are upset, at least white Republicans are upset, because blacks have taken their job. So therefore, we have to empty out the colleges, because apparently the colleges are filled with black people, according to Joy Reid, and end DEI. How did she make that leap? The reason we're ending DEI is because clearly it doesn't serve our black brothers and sisters. This is a meritocracy that we live in. You're only as good as your last whatever. We can't just guarantee everybody to win. You can't get a participation trophy in real life. Not everybody's guaranteed a job when they leave college. Not everybody's guaranteed success in life or perpetual success, right? You might be successful for a while and then not. That's part of the risk and reward and reality of life. So I just don't understand her thinking. I've never heard these arguments before. Now, I have heard the argument. I have had callers call me and tell me that they are afraid of the tanning or browning of America, and that the once white European heritage of this nation would be lost forever, and they would lose a legacy because of brown people, my people. I have heard that to my face, to my ear. It's a small minority of people in the Republican Party that feel that way. I've been around Republicans for many, many years, and by and large, most of them like Hispanic people. They like black people. Most of the time, they don't even care what your brand, right? Your ethnicity. They don't care. They care about a few things. Do you love America? Will you fight for America? You're going to mind your business, and you're going to pay your taxes. That's it. That's what most people care about, right? Love God, love people. Anyway, the music means I got to go. We're going to come back and talk more about the border. In New York City, they've deployed the National Guard to the subways because it's so out of control with crime. You guessed it, mostly illegal immigrants. Anyway, don't go anywhere, folks. I am Rich Valdez. We're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
325,000 people were flown in from parts unknown. Migrants were flown in airplane, not going through borders, not going through that great Texas barrier that I was with the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, the other day, and we were looking at the job they're doing. But in the meantime, they're pouring into California and they're pouring into Arizona because those governors aren't doing anything. They're doing nothing. But today it was just announced before I came out. It was unbelievable. I said, that must be a mistake. They flew 325,000 migrants, flew them in over the borders into our country. So that really tells you where they're coming from. They want open borders, and open borders are going to destroy our country.
That, of course, President Trump last night at his Super Tuesday victory speech, referring to the story that I was just looking at. 320,000 illegal aliens secretly flown into the United States to reduce the number of crossings at the border. And obviously this has national security vulnerabilities. The lawsuit that obtained this information reveals that Biden's Customs and Border Patrol is refusing to disclose the airports where it's flying these undocumented aliens from other countries. And it comes amid a continued flow of migrants over the southern border. Biden's expansion of CBP, the app that they use instead of going through the actual process, is allowing migrants to apply for asylum in their own country, to be flown into the U.S. and given 2 years to obtain legal status. I mean, now this is the ultimate transfer of wealth, right? Honestly, I've never seen anything like this. This is beyond the Mariel boat lift. But anyway, that's what we saw this week, right? Go back to a few weeks ago, Lake and Riley. Before that, the shooting in Times Square. The Brazilian woman that got shot. Then there was a toddler that was killed in a shootout with an illegal alien. Then there was a teenage girl that was raped by an illegal alien from El Salvador. Then you go far back as last summer, people that were released by DHS going and committing more heinous crimes. Now, I look at all this and I think we've got a massive problem on our hands. And I want to talk to somebody who was the chief of staff at the Department of Homeland Security, and she's with the Heritage Foundation now as the director of their immigration center there. Lora Reis, welcome back.
Well, thank you, Rich, for having me back on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And I really, I always look forward to our conversations because I know you've really got your finger on the pulse of what's going on. When you hear this news and you hear former President Trump remarking on this and you see headline after headline, I can't help but think, it's more of the same, right? We know that the Biden administration's complicit in this massive human smuggling operation. For why and to what end, we don't have those details. We can just speculate. But it doesn't seem like things are getting better. We've impeached Alejandro Mayorkas, but I feel like there's still no relief in sight. What say you?
Well, that seems to be the sentiment right now, and this news that is coming out about the flights directly into the U.S. into airports is just the latest blow, and it's about a year old, but it is gaining traction now. And so recall 2 Decembers ago, so December of 22, at that point was a new record high number of illegal alien crossings between the ports of entry. And so the Biden administration panicked. And the very next month, January of 23, is when Secretary Mayorkas came out and said, stop crossing illegally between the ports of entry, use this CBP Mobile One application, make an appointment, go to a port of entry, and we'll parole you in. But the focus, and it was 2 purposes. One, to get attention away from crossings at the ports, and just so they could say, look, the numbers between the ports have gone down. Don't be looking over here at the ports. But also, people, I think, just assumed, anyone who was paying attention to crossings at the ports were focusing on land ports and not the airports. And part of that was because DHS wasn't advertising it and they weren't saying which airports. But yes, in fact, a year ago, they were flying people directly in to airports in the, in the interior using the CBP Mobile One app. It just didn't get attention. And so now, after Center for Immigration Studies filed a FOIA and got documentation back, it's now become more transparent that, yes, this is what the administration has been doing for a year. And it just goes to show how deceitful Secretary Mayorkas and the Biden administration is about what they're doing. I've never seen an administration fight so hard to open the border, to keep it open in terms of many lawsuits, and when called out upon it, just the gaslighting and the deceit is what is so shocking. And so good for the House for finally impeaching Mayorkas.
Yeah.
But the Senate really needs to pick up that ball and do a full impeachment trial, because it's evidence like this that needs to come out, and Americans deserve to see all the evidence.
I agree with you 1,000%. And to me, this is very problematic because I guess it's because I can't understand it, right? I just can't wrap my head around why we want to do this in the most aggressive way possible. And what I'm seeing, like I saw a video, it's posted to my Instagram account. If anybody wants to take a look, I posted a little while ago on my Instagram story at Rich Valdez with an S. And it shows a guy taking video at I think he's in Massachusetts at an airport there. And it's just, several rows of chairs of people, hiding their faces that have come in on one of these flights. And these people are all from all parts of the world. And his commentary is that, look at all these military-aged men. And that seems to be the going sentiment everywhere. And there seems to be a lot of it. I mean, I think some could argue that men would be the better laborer because they don't get pregnant. They may not have to do child rearing. But there's also, I think, something worth looking at when you hear that, maybe this is a secret shadow army that's being assembled right beneath our noses at our own expense. And I think this goes beyond appropriations in Congress, beyond trying to sway elections. Maybe that's my own naivete and ignorance. But is there something I'm missing as to why there's this massive influx of people from all over the world?
Well, I think it is a number of countries all too happy to get rid of, excess population as they view it. They're criminals emptying jails. They know that the U.S. borders are open, and they're perfectly happy to exploit that and send their nationals who they don't care to take care of anymore over here. And at the same time, we have an administration that either due to ideology, they believe in open borders, or they are receiving money from bad elements, globalists, etc., the Chinese, Beijing.
That sounds right.
And therefore are obeying direction from these money sources to open the border and to do these programs and take these nationals. And the political benefit that the Democrats view this to be, whether that is straight out voting, even though they're non-citizens, and committing voter fraud, and congressional districts. California gets extra congressional districts because the U.S. Census doesn't have a U.S. citizenship question, and therefore everyone is counted. And therefore a state with lots of immigrants who are not citizens, whether those immigrants are lawful temporary visitors or illegal, all of the numbers get counted to determine how many congressional districts they get, which then in turn also goes towards presidential electoral votes for states with large immigrant populations. So I think it's all of the above. But bottom line is none of it is good for Americans. It's Americans last. It's U.S. citizenship last. It demeans the meaning of U.S. citizenship.
Folks, we're on with Lora Reis. She's Director of Border Security and Immigration Center at the Heritage Foundation, former Deputy Chief of Staff at the Department of Homeland Security. And when we come back, we're going to continue our discussion on the impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas. Will we see a Senate trial that finds him guilty? I hope we do. And also, the governor of New York has activated the National Guard and sent them into the subway system because of all of the crime that's going on. And a lot of this crime is related to the illegal immigration problem in New York City. Folks, don't go anywhere. We're on with Lora Reis, and we're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I'm redeploying nearly 1,000 members of the New York State Police, MTA Police, an MTA National Guard to conduct bag checks in the city's busiest transits. You'll start seeing them at the tables, making sure that weapons are not being brought in, working in concert with our New York State Police, as well as our NYPD. Because no one heading to their job or to visit family or to go to a doctor appointment should worry that the person sitting next to them possesses a deadly weapon.
That is Governor Kathy Hochul, state of New York, announcing that she's putting the National Guard and the state police out in full force, and they have no choice. What they need to do is reverse their sanctuary city laws, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Lora Reis is Director of Border Security and Immigration at the Heritage Foundation. She's a former Deputy Chief of Staff at the Department of Homeland Security, and she is our guest. Lora Reis, when you hear Governor Hochul say that she's putting the National Guard out there, I get happy for a second thinking, all right, wow, they're finally doing something. But at the same time, I'm like, is it more lip service? What do you think?
Well, it is an interesting combo after these blue sanctuary mayors and governors have gone after Texas Governor Abbott for bringing in the National Guard to help protect the border because the Biden administration won't. And so now here we are after 3 years, and these blue mayors and governors have to call on the same their National Guards to bring some law and order. But this is of their own doing. They have these sanctuary policies, and while they have cried that they can't take these numbers of illegal aliens that are coming to their cities, they still haven't reversed those sanctuary policies. So it's become a money game for them. They are just hoping and asking for more federal taxpayer money to continue to pay to shelter these very large populations. It also is pro-crime. When you've got prosecutors that just immediately release criminals back onto the street, won't prosecute them, or will downgrade the charges to some lesser charge, which ends up with the same results, putting them back onto the street only to commit more crimes. That needs to be stopped too. I mean, this isn't rocket science. And yet, if you listen to her, what does she pin it to at the end? Weapons. This is about guns for her. That's why I guess she is putting National Guard in the subway. It's to look for guns.
There's always a boogeyman attached to this. Now, Lora Reis, we have Sue in Schwenksville, Pennsylvania, listening on WXDE with a question about immigration. Sue, you're on with Lora Reis. Go right ahead.
Hi. Well, yeah, I was responding to what you were talking about earlier about them flying them directly into the country. I was sent a link to an article on the Gateway Pundit from February 29th talking about these processing centers in the Darien Gap area. And to quote this article, it says these processing centers are run by the U.S. State Department and the Department of Homeland Security and globalist organizations, and they're located throughout Central America in Guatemala, Costa Rica, Colombia, and Ecuador. And I think the original idea, or what they were selling it as, was a place where they could screen them before they come to this country. But apparently, it seems like they're flying them directly in from there. I've seen aerial photographs, and they're expanding these huge compounds. And I was wondering what your guest has to add about that, or what she knows about those.
Sure. Thank you, Sue. Lora Reis, what do you know about these the expansion of these centers?
Yes, the federal government, Biden administration, is paying non-governmental organizations, both domestically and abroad, to carry out this mass illegal immigration to the U.S. And so there are billions of dollars going out through federal grants and contracts from the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of State, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Justice, Department of Labor, paying all these groups that have built this very secretive infrastructure to transport, shelter, feed, and give social services and attorney services to the masses. And in terms of the State Department and what's going on, yes, they're called soft mobility offices. They are located throughout Central America, and they are, yes, facilitating direct travel into the U.S. where they are then released. They're given parole for at least 2 years, but that can be extended. They're given automatic work authorization. And so then they're dubbed as, quote unquote, lawfully here. This was a lawful pathway. But none of these people had visas. They had plenty of time to go get a visa. And so this is where, one of the many ways Secretary Mayorkas is violating the Immigration Act by mass paroling so many people in, because that is not what the statute calls for. And this is getting far afield from the classical refugee admissions program, where we would go overseas to refugee camps, interview them there, screen them there, adjudicate their case there, and then turn the case over to, they used to be called voluntary agencies, VOLAGs, they're now NGOs, to transport them into the U.S., help them get set up. Here's your first apartment. Here's how the bus system works. Here's how to go get a job. Good luck to you. We've gone far afield from that for this administration.
Lora Reis is former acting deputy chief of staff at the Department of Homeland Security in the Trump administration. And we're going to come back and get a little bit more understanding of what it's going to take to get a trial for Mayorkas, as well as your calls and more. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And we're discussing what it's going to take to see an actual Senate trial in the impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas. Our guest, Lora Reis, she was the Deputy Chief of Staff at the Department of Homeland Security. She's the Director of the Center for Immigration and Border Security at the Heritage Foundation. Lora Reis, what is it going to take? Political pressure, just a matter of time? What say you?
It's going to take a lot of political pressure and a lot of pressure from Americans. So I ask your audience, please contact the Senate right now and tell them that you want a full impeachment trial of Secretary Mayorkas, because we all deserve the evidence, such as them flying 320,000 inadmissible aliens into interior airports, as one example. But frankly, look, he's lost complete credibility with Americans and even with Democrats. And the Democrats don't want to defend him. They don't want to stand on the Senate floor and argue for him. And they certainly don't want to take a vote for this guy. And that is why Senator Schumer is trying to avoid a full trial on Mayorkas. So he might send it to an impeachment committee where it will languish. He might do a one-day circus trial and say, we held a trial. But Americans deserve a full trial. And it is also important to know that our oversight project at Heritage just revealed there is a $3 million contract that the taxpayers are paying for to a very wealthy New York City law firm, Debevoise, to defend Mayorkas for impeachment. So as we are trying to impeach him...
Before we run out of time, how do people find that? Is it heritage.org?
Yes.
Outstanding. Lora Reis, thank you. I apologize that we're out of time. Lora Reis with the Heritage Foundation. Check her out at heritage.org and check out that investigation. Thank you for being a patriot, and we're coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the second hour of the program, and if you want to join us on our late-night national town hall conversation, give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And we talked a little bit earlier about Nikki Haley dropping out of the race in the Republican primary. Good for her. It's about time. We talked about the ongoing problems that we see with immigration across the country, not just at the border, but how it spills over into so many areas. Governor Kathy Hochul in New York is now using the National Guard to patrol the subways because of crime that's on the rise, in no small part to illegal immigration in the city of New York. And these stories just don't end. Just, it's one bad story, one nightmare scenario after another, lamentably. And I figured it's time we talk about something good, a good story. And there's a book out called Dirt Roads to Runways, Defending the American Dream for the Next Generation. And honestly, that's what this show is all about, right? It's about, discussing the American dream and how we can chart the path forward to make this better for that next generation. So this was right in line with what we like to talk about here. And the author of the book is Keith Gross. He is an entrepreneur, a pilot, an attorney, and an activist for conservative causes. And he's with us now. Keith Gross, welcome to the program, sir.
Hey, Rich. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. And I want to get into your story a little bit. I don't have a ton of it, and I guess that's probably why we should all buy a couple of copies of the book, one for ourselves and one to give away. But I see that you were raised by a single mom in the Florida Panhandle, and it seems like you've done well for yourself in life, serving in the military, having completed graduate level education as an attorney, and your activism and political career. So let's talk about your upbringing. Let's talk about the dirt roads, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in rural North Florida, which is, most folks, when they think of Florida, they think of beaches and Miami. But rural North Florida has more cows than people in most areas. And, that's where I grew up. I grew up in a family that didn't have a lot. And I've gone from that to building multiple national companies. I've really lived the American dream, and I see it slipping away. So we've got to save it. We can't let that happen.
What got you started in business? Was that something you wanted to do as a kid, or was it something that you just fell into?
I think I saw other people running businesses throughout the community, and I knew that I had an interest in business. And, I went to undergrad, and I couldn't wait to get out of college and go and get involved in business because I knew that's what I had a real interest in.
Was there a particular industry that attracted you to it, or are you across the board in your business ventures?
Yeah, it was really across the board. I mean, I like business generally. Some of the earlier businesses that I was involved in were restaurants, and those, of course, did not turn out to be all that profitable. The first large company that we built was actually a truck washing company, of all things. It was a company that I partnered in after undergrad, and we built that company from the ground up. It took about 10 years, but we built it to being one of the largest of its type in the country, and we ultimately sold that off to private equity back in 2018.
And what's some of the takeaways that you took away from building a company like that and living literally the American dream, coming from a very small rural town to opening a big company and selling it to a private equity firm? What was the number one takeaway you took from an experience like that?
Never to give up. That's probably the number one takeaway. If someone else can do it, so can you. And it's really a matter of determination and hard work. We had to make a lot of sacrifices along the way. It wasn't easy, but we put the business ahead of ourselves time after time, and that paid off.
And how does your military service fit into this? I see that you're a pilot and an attorney. Were you an attorney in the military? Did that come afterwards? What was your path like?
So I served in the military only briefly as a member of the Army National Guard. And, I learned to fly completely separately. That was something that I did, when I was building a restaurant concept, and it was back in the 2008 financial crash. And I took some time off and thought I would develop the skill for flying and use that. At the time, I was living in Georgia and commuting back and forth to my hometown of Panama City in Florida. It's a 5 or 6 hour drive, or about an hour and 20 minutes by air. So I bought a cheap airplane. Back then, you could buy a cheap airplane for about $30,000, and that's what I did. So I flew back and forth.
How cool is that? I was joking one day on the air. I said, I want to buy a helicopter, and I found one for like $50,000. And I thought, man, I don't know if that's a safe helicopter for $50,000. But if you're telling me you could get a plane for $30,000 back then, it's probably more now. But it's inspiring. You know, I don't know too many people that fly. Cool hobby. It sounds like an expensive one, though. Am I right?
It tends to be an expensive hobby these days, but you know, it's really useful for business as well. We can make multiple meetings in a day, and we can do round trips that we couldn't do otherwise. But it's also really a lot of fun, and why work if we can't have fun, right?
Yeah, amen to that. Folks, we're on with Keith Gross. He is the author of Dirt Roads to Runways, Defending the American Dream for the Next Generation. And how does politics fit into your story of coming from a dirt road and headed to a runway?
Well, I'll tell you, it started with watching the way the country has progressed. You know, I've seen how much the country has become divided, and I've watched as Marxist policies have infiltrated our government. And, you know, I built 2 more companies after we sold the last one. We built 2 more companies from the ground up, sold those off, and, you know, they were national companies as well. They were large, much larger than the first. And after that, it really kicked in for me that I could go and build 10 more companies and it wouldn't change anything about my life. What will matter is what we leave behind for the next generation. If we don't leave behind a country that has opportunity, like those opportunities that I had growing up, then my kids and grandkids are going to experience an America that's nothing like I experienced. We've got to turn this country around, and we've got to do it quick because it's slipping fast, faster than I ever thought possible.
Well, I want to talk about that and the impetus for your run for the U.S. Senate when we come back. Folks, we're on with Keith Gross. He's author of the book, Dirt Roads to Runways, Defending the American Dream for the Next Generation. Again, he's an attorney, a pilot, and a conservative activist, and he's running for the U.S. Senate. We're going to learn more about that when we return. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Hands across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And we always love to hear from our callers all across the nation. We got Frank in Cumberland, Maryland on WCBC with a question for our guest, Keith Gross. Frank, go right ahead.
Where did the money for law school come from, and where did the capital come from to start all these businesses?
Thank you, Frank. Excellent question. Keith Gross, go right ahead.
Sure, those are good questions. So the capital to start the businesses, there wasn't much of it. I mean, there were times where we literally put payroll on credit card cash advances because when we were doing the truck washing business, as that company grew, we had a difficult situation. The situation was companies would hire us to wash their trucks, but then they wouldn't pay their invoice for 30 or 60 days. They had terms. Of course, payroll was due every Friday. So while we were usually excited to get a new customer, it came with a downside, and that was we were going to have to figure out how to scrape together payroll and fuel costs until those invoices came due. So it took a long time to get to where we were stabilized, and there was really no cash infusion. We couldn't get loans at the time. So we just had to scrape by and make do, save up what we could. As far as law school, I took out student loans, which I was fortunate to be able to access, and ultimately ended up paying those student loans off. So you can imagine my frustration seeing all these student loans being forgiven when I had to work hard to pay mine off.
Right. Yeah, I paid some of mine too, and I still owe. And interestingly, now, I stand to have you and everybody else in America pay my loan. Thank you, Joe Biden. And that opens the conversation to what comes ahead now, right? America's mortgaging the future. And the title of your book, again, talks about the next generation. How do you make the gap? How do you bridge the gap, I should say, from being an entrepreneur and your service in the military and working as an attorney to running for the U.S. Senate in Florida?
Well, I think we need more people who don't have a career in politics to go and help lead this nation. If we had more people that knew how to balance a budget like a business person, we might not be $34 trillion in debt. Our founding fathers laid out a pretty straightforward vision for how the country's supposed to be operated, and our government's gotten very far off of that track, and it seems to be worse by the minute.
What are you proposing on is it spending cuts? What's your hope? What do you bring into the table to make that a reality?
Yeah, spending cuts are definitely a large part of it. We need to dramatically reassess the size and scope of the federal government. We've got departments that shouldn't exist. The Department of Education is a prime example. $300 billion a year budget. They don't employ a single teacher. States already have departments of education. We don't need a U.S. Department of Education. It's just a duplicative power grab by the federal government. So we've got to shut down unnecessary, duplicated agencies, and we've got to start reassessing where we spend the money that we are spending in this country, because too often it's spent on America last policies. We're sending hundreds of billions of dollars to foreign nations while veterans sleep on sidewalks. That's not right.
So tell us about the launch of your campaign and what you have planned for that.
Yeah, well, I announced that I'm running for U.S. Senate here. I'm challenging the incumbent here in the Republican primary, and we've been on a bus tour for the last month. We've been going county by county and town by town, taking our message directly to voters on a grassroots level, and we've seen a huge level of support. The polling shows that we're moving up rapidly. The polling shows that the incumbent is highly unpopular. And people are ready for a change. We're tired of seeing weak people represent us in Washington. We're tired of seeing people that cave time after time to the Democrat agenda. We've got to start sending lions, not lambs, or we're going to keep getting the same disaster that we see.
Yeah, outstanding. I think we're definitely in need of somebody who's looking to bring spending cuts into Washington. We're in bad shape there. Keith Gross, let everybody know how they can keep track of the work that you're doing and how they can get a copy of your book.
Well, you can go to keithgross.com and sign up for newsletters and info there. I'm also on social media at Keith Gross FL. That's on Twitter, Instagram, you name it, I'm on it. And for the book, you can find copies at Barnes & Noble or at Amazon.com, and it's also an audiobook on Audible.
Outstanding. Folks, check out Keith Gross and grab a copy of his book, 2 copies if you can, one for yourself, one to give away. Keith, good luck with everything. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I thank you for staying up late with us tonight.
Thanks so much. Good to talk to y'all.
You bet. Now, I wanted to, before we get into our next topic of conversation, I wanted to circle back to something because there was there's always some crazy in the media. And one of the crazy things that I heard in the media was Joe Scarborough. He's got a show called The Morning Joke. It's on MSNBC. And this is an interesting comment because he says that intellectually and analytically, this is the best version of Joe Biden ever. Listen to this.
But comparing that guy's mental state, I've said it for years now, he's cogent. Mm-hmm. But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years. And, you know, I don't know if people know this or not, Biden used to be a hothead. Sometimes that Irishman would get in front of the reasoning. Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. This is, and I don't really, you know what, I don't really care. Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it.
So there you have Joe Biden talking about how well they know Joe Scarborough talking about how well they know Joe Biden and how he's beyond cogent. He is analytically and intellectually the best version of Biden he's ever been. Wow. Now, again, it's easy for me. I don't know Joe Biden. I'm presuming most of you don't know Joe Biden either. I can only go by the clips I've seen. I've met plenty of people that don't like former President Trump, that didn't like George W. Bush, both who I'd met, and I thought were decent people. You know, I think we've had Trump on this program, and he was a heck of a guy. So I think sometimes it takes meeting people to see the real version of them. And some people will only know what the media has introduced them to. So if you watch MSNBC, there's a chance that you're only seeing the worst side of Trump with a lot of negative analysis of Trump. Now, this is not necessarily a defense of Trump. It's more so an indictment on Joe Scarborough and how he could say that this is the best version of Biden that we've got. Come on, Joe Scarborough. This is not the best version of Biden. I think, just rewind the tape to when he was vice president. He was a lot more. How about when he wiped the floor with Paul Ryan in a debate? How about that? I thought he did an amazing job back then, Vice President Biden. He couldn't do that today. And I'm not faulting him for being old, faulting him for being president. Anyway, folks, we come back to discuss more. And, of course, our phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. So obesity is a big topic of conversation, and weight loss is one of those things. People are weighing themselves too often, not enough. There's a lot of debate about that. There are people taking weight loss drugs. There's a lot going on in the world of obesity. There's a little bit of an epidemic of it, and there's a report that I want you to hear. Listen to this.
Employers are figuring things out after weight loss drugs helped fuel an 8.4% bump in employer pharmacy benefit costs last year. Some companies are now setting limits, lifetime benchmarks, or eliminating coverage for the weight loss drug completely.
Jason Krenicki says taking the weight loss medicine Wegovy changed his life.
I'm down 47 pounds, and I feel healthier and happier.
But Krenicki says his employer dropped his coverage of the medication. A 1-month supply used to cost him $25, now costs $1,000. The steep price causing him to tap into his retirement savings.
It's frustrating. It's sickening. And now if I stop it and if I say I can't afford it at one point, I'm going to gain my weight back.
And there lies the problem. Experts say some patients might need to be on these medications their entire lives, leaving employers to worry about the high price tag and the rising costs.
Obesity is a chronic disease, and because obesity is a chronic disease that needs to be managed across a patient's lifespan, and you look at the numbers and you look at the cost of medications over the cost of a person's lifetime, that number can be completely overwhelming.
For Krenicki, that lifelong struggle with obesity no different than living with any other chronic condition.
They would not pull cancer patient medicine or fight somebody that's living with cancer. I'm not just somebody that's obese. I'm a person living with obesity. People need to realize that I'm a human being and I have feelings and I should have the same care.
Krenicki's employer, RWJ Barnabas, a New Jersey healthcare system, says the health and well-being of our employees is of utmost priority. We continue to cover the use of GLP-1 agonists for individuals with diabetes. But for weight loss, the company says, after an in-depth analysis, we determined there was a lack of sustained adherence in continuing the medication among significant percentage of individuals, thereby curtailing their effectiveness.
So that's part of the conversation I want to have is the surge in these medicines like Wegovy, Mounjaro, Ozempic, and other GLP-1 inhibitors that allow people to manage their blood sugar but have a side effect of weight loss. And I can't say I argue with these companies because if these drugs are all designed, for the most part, are all designed, minus Wegovy, to manage diabetes. And it's a side effect, the weight loss. Now that they've figured out that this does this, they're marketing it as weight loss medicine, which is great. But it's, other than the Wegovy, it's used off-label for weight loss. So I get it. And you're talking, right, I think right now they're at a $20,000 cap. And to me, the question becomes, there's some people that definitely need this, and this works really well. But there are others that maybe a healthier option, a healthier lifestyle might help. Now, I'm not suggesting that the people that are on these weight loss medicines are living an unhealthy lifestyle or that they're otherwise not doing that, because I do realize, people do get ill and they do need medications. But it's an interesting debate, and there's a lot to talk about, and we've got a few segments. So I want to bring in our guest because. Janna Johnson, she's a holistic nutritionist, and she specializes in healthy living, and she's got some thoughts on this. Janna Johnson, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So let's talk a little bit about this. What's your perspective on these weight loss drugs and your take on employers potentially not covering them for weight loss use, but only for diabetic use?
Yeah, so, I'm always hesitant on weight loss drugs. And, there's been too many that overpromise and things, seem like they're working. And then the health issues come and the side effects that are not good. And so, it's really surprising that an employer would pay for them. But, it cost them. And I think what was happening is that there were some employees who were dropping use of it early and then gaining the weight back. And so, if you're an employer and your employee's doing that, it costs you extra to add that on to your commercial insurance. And so, they're dropping it. Honestly, in my opinion, it boils down to learning healthy habits. Because as long as you're taking this drug, then you're not taught how to eat healthy. And when you quit taking it, every study shows you gain the weight back. You got to learn how to eat healthy and not rely on a drug.
Right. Well, in the case where the guy makes the case about cancer, it's kind of like, would somebody turn to somebody with cancer and say, well, you got to learn how to, eat foods that are going to make you healthier against cancer, and you're not going to take chemo. I think it's a kind of a catch-22. I agree that, people are there are a lot of fat people, if I could put it bluntly, myself being one of them. Yeah. I was very fat. I was 200 and just about 70 pounds, 269 pounds. And it was from a very avid lifestyle of fast food 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Burger King, McDonald's, White Castle, like religiously for years. And one day, and people would see this and tell me things like, you should be careful. That can't be good for you. And I really thought I was invincible. I was like, come on. I've been doing this for years. I'm not even close to a heart attack. And I was in my early 30s and whatnot. And thank God I never got a heart attack. But when I was 37, I went to the doctor. And I hadn't gone since I was 32. And the doctor told me, he said, you are, I said, how do I look? And, I knew he was going to give me, a hard time because I figured I'm overweight. And, I'd heard this story from every other doctor. But he told me that I was right on track for a massive heart attack or stroke by 50. And I said, all right, now stop kidding. And he said, no. He said, on my medical license. He said, right now you should be on insulin. You should be on high blood pressure medicine. You should be on cholesterol medication. You should be on everything. And I thought it was excessive. And then he started explaining to me, this is where you should be, this number, your blood sugar should be here, your blood pressure should be here, your cholesterol should be at this number, and you're at this. And I was blowing it away 3-4 times the amount that I was supposed to be at according to the doctor. And it, and it wasn't until he got really blunt with me and he said, look, I've dealt with you Puerto Rican guys before. And I said, what does that mean? He said, I know you guys, you like to eat roast pork, you drink a lot of beer, a lot of rice and beans, you love to eat, and that's just how it is. It's a part of your culture. And he said, I see it all the time. I tell them in their 30s, look, you're going to have a massive heart attack or stroke, and 10 years go by, and then they have it. And he said, with any luck, the massive heart attack or stroke by 50 will actually kill you. If it doesn't, then you're going to live till 60 with a bunch of amputations, and you're going to live a miserable life for those next 10 years. And it was so morbid. And I was like, how dare you talk to me like that, sir? I felt like Greta Thunberg. How dare you?
He didn't even ask what you were eating. He assumed, based on your ethnicity, what you were eating.
When you're my height and have that much extra weight, I guess it was clear that my caloric intake was through the roof. And didn't get like that eating salads, right? So I said, look, is there any opportunity for me to make good here? And he said, do you think that you could drop 25 pounds in 90 days? And I said, I've never lost that kind of weight, but I can try. And he said, look, I'm going to give you a diet. He wrote something down on a piece of paper for me. And it was basically the keto diet, no pasta, potatoes, rice, or bread. And he said, eat anything that had eyes and as much greens as you want and a gallon of water a day. He said, do that and come back, and I won't put you on all these different medicines if the numbers improve. And I went back in 90 days, and, I have to take a break. We'll come back. I'll tell you exactly what happened, and I'll get your reaction to it. Folks, We're on with Janna Johnson. She's an expert in healthy living, and she's a holistic nutritionist. And we're going to talk about how to be healthy and all the other things that are going on in the world of obesity. So don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Is night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back, amigos. We are on with Janna Johnson. She's a holistic nutritionist, and I was telling her about my weight loss journey from my life of obesity, and I was overweight my entire life, Janna Johnson, and I went to the doctor. He read me the Riot Act, and he said 90 days, and I started this diet known as the keto diet, drinking my gallon of water a day and forcing, because, who drinks a gallon of water a day? I certainly did not. And I started drinking what he told me to drink and eating everything. And before you knew it, I was just losing tons of fat. My weight didn't change at first, but my shirts were looser, my neck was slimmer. I was just really not as big. And before you knew it, I was losing weight. And I went back and I think I lost 33 pounds when the goal was 25. Doctor was like, wow, I didn't think you could do it. You stop eating the rice and beans. I was like, yeah, I actually did. Because my wife at the time was from the Dominican Republic. Her family is, at least, and she cooked really good and a lot every day. And I started eating, I stopped eating a lot of that stuff, when I was still married and whatnot. And then afterwards I got divorced, and that's really when I took the diet seriously. And I lost this weight, and I continued. I ended up getting down to 199 pounds. And today today or yesterday, I was 197, 198 pounds. And I've been able to keep the weight off. I continue the diet, low carb. Every now and again, I go to the gym. But it really is all about diet. And that was something that he told me that sold me. He said, look, you can walk if you want to walk. You should do exercise. He said, but this is going to be 90% diet. 5% supplements, 5% exercise. And I'd never heard anybody put it that way. And that was what sold me, the fact that I didn't have to go to the gym and I could still lose weight. And I wanted to share that story with you because I realized that was my story. But I've met other people who they can't. They literally can't. I enjoyed losing weight, and I enjoy eating too, but I enjoy feeling good or enjoying the benefits of being lighter and normal and fitting in an airline seat a lot better and all of those things way more than I enjoy eating 3 cheeseburgers or half a pie of pizza or a whole pie of pizza, right? So I think for me, it was just bad habits, enjoying eating too much. But I think for other people, there's something else that's causing them to overeat, and it's not just bad habits. And that's why I think this medicine works for them. Some of the studies I've seen for these medicines don't only help people that are overeating, but people that have gambling issues and other types of addiction where this thing affects the part of their brain that makes them feel satisfied, not only with food, but with other things. And I think that's why it's beneficial. And this is the only drug that I've ever seen that does that. So that being said, I want to talk about my angle, which is eating good and trying to, keep a healthy lifestyle. And that's where you come in, because I've never been or spoken with a holistic nutritionist, but I try to eat a good amount of vegetables. And recently somebody said, you eat a lot of lettuce, and there's nothing going on in lettuce. You should probably switch to kale or something else that has a lot more nutrients in it. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, and congratulations on doing that and maintaining it. And your story just shows people what is possible. And also, most importantly, it was and has been sustainable. And so as a holistic nutritionist, what led me down that road was Lyme disease. And I got chronic Lyme disease in 2013. It took a long time to figure out what it was. Conventional medicine failed me. And long story short, that is exactly where I learned about gut health, and that food was either my medicine or my poison, right? So I'm either feeding a disease or starving it. Sugar feeds disease. It is the worst thing you can put in your body, and it's in everything, Rich. It's in everything. Now they hide it and disguise it with different names. And, fruit juices, high sugar fruits, all of it.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, your gut health determines your brain health. Okay. So a lot of your neurotransmitters are produced in your gut. 80% of your immune system's in your gut. Our gut health is everything. And that is exactly why I do what I do, because when I healed my gut and I starved that disease out and I nourished me, but not the disease, I got well. I healed myself 100%. I healed my hypothyroidism. And that is when I was just like, I need to teach other people to do this. Like this is the key, right? So that's what I do with my clients. I actually went keto as well. And that is because the ketogenic diet, your body's running off of ketones and not glucose as its energy source. So I couldn't have any sugar. And people were like, oh, you can't eat fruit?
Yeah,
I couldn't have any sugar at all. Now, today I can, but when I had Lyme disease, it didn't matter if I had a Snickers bar or a banana. Yes, I got healthy things from the banana, but the sugar fed the disease. So I did what I had to do. And, you know, I'm guessing the reason that you have stuck with it is that you had a very deep why. Like, what was your why, right? And that's what I ask people when they want to work with me, because I don't want to work with just anyone, because I'm not going to waste my time if someone's not serious. There's no magic pill. It's not overnight. And it always boils down to, what is your why? Why do you want this? And it has to be something that's deep and meaningful, like it was for you. You wanted to live. You didn't want to suffer. You didn't want to have health problems. And that's why you weren't doing it. It wasn't about looks. Is that a part of it? Sure, it's nice. But your reason.
Yeah, and I didn't
deep,
know
and
about
that's
that part
exactly
until it happened. Quite frankly, right? You're right. It was my mom was unhealthy, and then she died, and this sparked this little journey for me. And then when I lost weight, it was like, oh my gosh, look at all these women that are interested in me. Wow, what's going on here? And you know, it just it became a very cool thing to continue to lose weight. Janna Johnson, don't go anywhere. We're coming right back to you, folks. 833-482-5337 is the number. We'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. We're on with Janna Johnson, holistic nutritionist. You could check her out at revivebyjanna.com. Janna Johnson, I want to wrap up this topic here with you with the question, are we weighing ourselves too much? And what's the number one thing you recommend people to do?
I love this question. I get asked this one a lot. And here's what I've learned in my personal experience in life, and as well as working with clients, is that the ones that have a hard time weighing themselves, they know it's not going to be what they want to see, right?
Yeah.
But when people are ready to get healthy, they are ready to face the scale. So for me, look, I'm a person who has suffered from 3 eating disorders and started weighing myself obsessively at 11 years old.
Wow.
So this really hits home for me, and I understand it from the mental, emotional aspect, okay? Overeating is typically caused by emotional pain. However, that leads to weight gain. That causes more feelings of guilt, not good enough, not worthy. We know the scale is not going to look right for us. So I tell people, don't think of it as telling you whether you look good or not. It's about, it's a reference marker and a motivator.
And ultimately, it's about being healthy. Janna Johnson, the music means they're kicking both of us out of here, but thank you for being with us tonight. You are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thanks for everything you do. Folks, we're coming right back. Open Phone America. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez with an S, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be with you this Wednesday night. Our phone number, if you want to join our late-night national town hall conversation, we're live and happy to chat with you. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And again, some of the headlines here. Nikki Haley has suspended her presidential campaign. She did not endorse Trump, and she said he's got to work for it now. It was kind of petty, honestly. I don't know what that was all about, but didn't seem presidential in the least. There was a Houthi missile attack. It killed 3 sailors aboard a commercial vessel. This is the first time that a missile attack has caused fatalities. They've only caused brain injuries, which is some people would rather be dead than deal with a brain injury. But 3 people were killed. We'll talk about that shortly. Uncommitted got 11 DNC delegates and about 345,000 votes in the Democrat primary yesterday on Super Tuesday. And a couple of other people that have ended or suspended their presidential campaign. Dean Phillips, who was my favorite Democrat for about a month, he suspended his campaign. Hopefully he'll come back and take Joe El Baboso Biden out of the picture, Dean. And Cenk Uygur. Cenk Uygur is the one of the hosts from the Young Turks. They've been critical of me in the past, and I recently just learned that he was running for president, and lamentably he ended his campaign yesterday as well, or today, as a result of yesterday's landslide victory by Joe El Baboso Biden. And something I want to talk about here is the armorer. That's the person that handles the guns on a movie set for the movie Rust, where the woman Helena Hutchins was killed. The armorer was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. And again, this has been the age-old question. Why was there a real gun with real bullets on a movie set when you have an armorer? If you tell me it's a low-budget movie and, you know, we brought in our friend's brother's, uncle's, cousin's gun, and we're like, hey, look, don't point it at people. That's loaded, you know? But, and I don't mean to make light of this in any way. I'm just laughing at my poor analogy. But in reality, why was there a gun that was live on a movie set? I don't have the answer. And this is why I've never really come out hard against Alec Baldwin, because I understand that he had protocol and rules and things he had to follow. But ultimately, I'm thinking at no point did he ever think that he was even capable of killing somebody with a prop gun, right? At least he shouldn't have thought that, even if he should follow the protocol of a real live firing gun. I understand that part, and that's on him, that part. But the part of, you know, of actually hurting someone, you know, just to me, it's just crazy that a real gun with real bullets made its way onto a movie set. That still doesn't fit into my brain. And we have some audio on that from the jury foreperson that actually announced the verdict. Listen to this.
We find the defendant, Hannah Gutierrez, guilty of involuntary manslaughter as charged in count 1. We find the defendant, Hannah Gutierrez, not guilty of tampering with evidence as charged in count 2.
So my thought here is this a cop-out? Are they blaming the wrong person, the right person? I'm not angling to punish Alec Baldwin, honestly. I'm thinking if this person was in charge of making sure that gun worked on a movie set and that it was not a real gun and it didn't have bullets in it, why did they have a real gun and why did it have bullets in it? That's, you know, I think that question's been answered, but the answer has never been satisfactory to me. I just don't understand why such a thing would happen and how we end up in a place like this. Just very, very crazy. And one more story I want to get to. This is a very sad one as well. We talked about some rage, horror, violence earlier with these 8 suspects arrested for killing a 20-year-old girl who was actually a mom to like a 3-year-old. Well, in Philly, 8 kids waiting for the bus at a bus stop, they were mowed down. in cold blood. Just absolutely horrible. 18 shot in Philly while they were waiting for a city bus to arrive. This is very, very, very unfortunate, and it pains me that this is something that we're even discussing in the midnight hour here, but it is. And these 8 teenagers were shot. They're not dead, but they were all shot while waiting for a city bus on their way home from high school on Wednesday. That's earlier today. One of the teens, 16-year-old boy, was shot 9 times. He's fighting for his life, according to police and local reports. A group of students from Northeast High School were waiting there for the SEPTA bus in Philly's Broholm neighborhood when 3 gunmen jumped out of a parked vehicle, ambushed the teens at around 3 p.m., and opened fire. And again, my question, what did they do to those guys? You know, maybe they did something, maybe they didn't. I don't know. But it's just so bizarre that we're seeing, I mean, it's not bizarre to see violence in Philly, but it's to me, it's just, there's a lot of very, very heavy-handed stuff going on, and we're only getting half the story. You know, I want to know, did these guys do something to these gunmen? Are they encroaching on territory? Like, what's the motive here? Anyway, these gunmen fired more than 30 shots at these teenagers, and they rushed to get on to an arriving bus. Man, that's got to be scary for the bus driver. They were shot. They all range in age from 15 to 17, and they're all in stable condition except for the one who's in critical condition. The 3 shooters and the driver of the dark blue Hyundai sedan were all wearing masks during the mass shooting and were last seen driving towards Cheltenham Township. That's the Great Ones part of town. 2 city buses were hit by bullets during this chaos. No passengers or bus drivers were struck, thank God. A woman who works at a nearby diner heard the gunshots, ran out to find several young people wounded on the ground. The woman who works at the diner heard these gunshots and was taken back. She said the children are dying out here every day. Somebody's got to do something about this. This doesn't happen in this neighborhood typically. Horrible. Absolutely horrible what's going on. Anyway, I want to get to your thoughts and more when we return. The phone lines are open. I see we have calls coming in from Florida, from Montana, and more that are coming in. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
So earlier I talked about a story that I saw on the Drudge Report. And I'm looking at the story here in the Daily Star, UK publication. Describing the violence in the country, a journalist said that cannibalism has been witnessed on the streets of Haiti as the violence reaches unprecedented levels, according to the Express US, another publication. Speaking anonymously, the reporter said Haiti is living in a total chaotic situation right now. This is total chaos everywhere, especially in the capital where I am right now. And that was one of the reporters speaking to another reporter, that they've witnessed cannibalism. People are eating. Listen to the headline here. Haiti cannibal gangs are eating people they've killed on the streets as violence erupts. Again, I don't know the validity of this report, but man, this is kind of crazy. It's by Adam Kyler and Charlie Bradley for dailystar.co.uk. And maybe this is a sensational newspaper. It could be. But crazy. And now I understand that voodoo is a very popular practice in Haiti and that they kill animals and there's sacrifices. But I didn't know that eating people was part of it. Maybe it is. I don't know. But, man, that is nuts. I thought the Hamas crowd, after what we saw yesterday with the UN discovering that they were complicit in this attack through their group UNRWA, UNRWA, and actually helping to carry out the October 7th attacks, and that they did in fact rape people and they even raped dead corpses. I thought that was crazy, that report from yesterday. But this report that these people are eating the people that they've killed, I don't know if it's better or worse, but it's crazy nonetheless, right? Que locura. Anyway, I want to get to your calls on this stuff. Let's go to Eduardo, Tampa, Florida, WWTK. Eduardo, welcome.
Yeah, Rich, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, I guess you can maybe blame this partially on the pandemic, but we seem to have a lawless society. You were speaking about Haiti. The wife tried to knock off the ex-president, and they're thinking about sending a Kenyan part of a UN force over there. And then Mexico, they try to smash the doors of the palace over there because the president
saw that earlier today
about the missing students investigation. And near your area over there in New York, they're throwing the National Guard on the subway. We have a lawless society post-pandemic.
Oh, I agree. But it wasn't like, the pandemic was in 2020. We didn't have these level of problems in 21 or 22 or even 23. Maybe in 23 there was a spike in crime. I agree that there was a spike in crime from the pandemic, but by and large, I think we're just getting progressively worse. And most people are back at work. A lot of people are back in the office. We're definitely out of the pandemic. Even the CDC says that, treat it like the flu. Go to work, do whatever, and you don't have to quarantine anymore. So I just think to myself, man, we're just in really, really bad shape here where people want to kill each other. And you've got these kids in Alabama that killed that 20-year-old girl.
Right, that's another one, right?
What do you think is going on? Do you really think it's the pandemic, or do you think it's a lack of human compassion?
Well, we definitely know there's mental illness out there. How far that extends out to the U.S., that's for debate. Well, we definitely have that in the U.S., mental illness.
And do you think people being like isolated from the pandemic and maybe being depressed is ultimately what leads to all this violence?
Yep, because I go on Daily Mail, and you cannot miss a story without somebody knocking off a family member. Not a friend or a stranger, an actual family member.
Wow. I'll tell you, Eduardo, this is it's crazy to me. And I get that people were isolated and that they were, just in a tough place. I really do. But I don't think that makes way to kill your family members, to eat people in the streets of Haiti or in Port-au-Prince, or to do any of these other things we're hearing that are really out of the norm in any decade, right? I don't think there's a decade in my lifetime where you go, well, back in the 50s, people were eating people everywhere. And that just wasn't a thing. Things seem to be getting progressively worse, and I don't know where to blame, but I think when you have that level of compassion that is lost on people in society, I think public education is part of the problem. And even private education to some degree. I think just the education system. I think family values come into question. Did these kids grow up in a home where there were two parents that could really show them, what life was about and to have a little bit more value for life? And once I think we answer some of those, and of course, are these praying people? Do they believe in God? Do they believe in life? Do they think that you have a right to live? I think when you don't have these perspectives, you're almost inevitably going to have these outcomes that we're seeing. And they are sad, but I still have some faith. Eduardo, Tampa, Florida, WWTK. Thanks for the call. Very insightful as usual. Folks, we come back with the rest of your calls and more in a moment. But first, we'll go to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN, and check in with Al. Al, go right ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. Yeah, I want to talk to all these people that are suffering from this Trump derangement syndrome. This Joe Obama character is fundamentally trying to change the United States.
Who is Joe Obama?
Well, the clown that's running the country.
Ah, I see. It's like an O Biden type of thing. Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, the point is who ran on fundamentally changing America a while ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's what this clown is doing now.
Right. Yeah, and I think he's moved the needle a lot, right? Barack Obama said things like, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon Martin. And Joe Biden just came out and said, if you're black, we're going to treat you differently and better than everybody else. And it's just amazing that we have this diversity, equity, inclusion. It sounds nice, right? Everybody wants diversity. Everybody wants people to be included. The equity part, again, I've never been sold on that. I think unless you're giving me equity at a company, and again, why would you just do that because I'm of a certain color or ethnicity? I think that it doesn't make sense to me. It sounds racist in many ways. The definition of racist that I was taught as a kid, which was treating people differently because of their race. I know that's been redefined. I have a very left-leaning friend that told me, no. Only white people can be racist. Hispanics can't be racist. Blacks can't be racist. I said, why not? You can't have a black person that doesn't like white people. And they said, no, white people were slave owners. I said, so? And this is, she's an attorney. And I thought, I don't understand. And she was like, no, it's very simple. They have a family legacy of not having to deal with being a person of color. So they'll never understand racism the way that a person of color does. And I thought, they may not know that experience, but that shouldn't redefine what we consider racism, right? I think if you're treating people differently because of their race, then we shouldn't do that. Pro or con, right? We shouldn't say, hey, you're going to get into Harvard because you're black. You're going to get into Harvard because you're of a particular, you're Hispanic, you're Jewish, you're whatever. I think you get into Harvard because you have good grades, right? You've done well on the admissions exam or whatever it is. It's got to be based on your merit. We're not going to guarantee you anything because of where you came from or where your parents are born. That's just crazy. Anyway, folks, we're going to get to your calls and more momentarily. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere.
There is more news in your commentary, in your analysis, than there is on the news network.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
The aftermath of the first fatal Houthi attack on commercial shipping. 3 dead, 3 more in critical condition, the rest of the crew forced to abandon ship. Earlier this week, the Indian Navy had to come to the rescue of another burning ship. And over the weekend, the Ruby Mar, leaking both fuel and its cargo of fertilizer, became the first vessel to sink as a result of a Houthi attack, damaging undersea internet and telecommunications cables as she went down.
That report, sadly, the first fatalities that have come, U.S. Central Command says 3 members of a multinational crew died. 4 others were injured, including 3 that are in critical condition. And a statement from CENTCOM says that these reckless attacks by the Houthis have disrupted global trade and taken the lives of 3 international seafarers. The British Embassy in Yemen announced the deaths of at least 2 sailors, saying that their deaths were the sad and predictable result of the Houthis' reckless missile launches on the international shipping community, saying they must stop. The embassy wrote in a statement, "Our deepest condolences are with the family and those who died and who were injured." Yeah, what else can you do? I mean, you got your hands tied because you've got no support, right? You don't have a solid ally in the United States that is willing to do anything except, lip service. Sad. The Iran-backed Houthis are taking responsibility for the strike on the Liberian-owned and Barbados-flagged carrier. It was called the True Confidence. It was docked near Yemen, and they issued a warning to the vessel to leave the sea, and I guess it didn't do it fast enough, and voila, they went there and they killed these guys with these missile attacks. The crew was forced to abandon the vessel, and coalition ships were tasked with defending them and responding to the damaged ship, according to the UK Maritime Authority. Now, a spokesperson for the Houthis delivered a video statement later after the attack, which happened earlier today, saying the fighters carried out a targeted operation that was precise and sparked a fire on the ship. That's what they wanted. The Houthis warned other ships, saying they must respond to the calls of the Yemeni naval forces, and all crews of the targeted ships must quickly depart after the first strike. They're calling the shots there. The strike is the latest clash between the Houthis and the commercial shipping community and a U.S.-led task force in the Red Sea. So there you have it. They keep going. Iran continues to antagonize us, and here we are. Here we are. Not a damn thing going on. Let's go to Sarah. Sarah is in Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Sarah, what do you think of this attack by the Houthis?
It's horrible, but it's predictable. I don't wonder, we and a lot of other countries give humanitarian aid, and I don't wonder if certain regimes use this humanitarian aid to feed their people, and then they take their money from their various industries or whatever they're making money on and use it to buy weapons, because they always have the wild style best weapons, and yet their populations are impoverished. So that's my opinion on it.
Mm-hmm. And I know you had a comment on some of the violent crimes we've been witnessing. What are your thoughts there?
Well, the leftists can cry about white supremacy, but I would call them non-white supremacists. And if you tell people, because of your background, that we'll give you a slap on the wrist when you commit a crime because you're really a victim of systemic racism, then it should be no surprise that the criminal class amongst those people are going to come out and just go wild. And I think ever since BLM, that just told black criminals they were above the law. And if you take illegal immigrants and say, well, because you're not American, you can come here and do whatever you want, it should be no surprise. I mean, the Democrats are just a supremacist of a different color, and some of the worst practitioners of this are white liberals. I've had too many white liberals tell me that, about non-whites can't be racist. I've had white liberals tell me that, and I think, my goodness, how stupid are you? You know what I mean? The only non-whites they don't like are patriotic conservatives such as yourself. Boy, oh boy, then all of a sudden that protective thing comes off. I mean, look at Clarence
it's
Thomas.
Like you're subhuman at that point.
Oh yeah, and then by golly, then the real racism comes out. Boy, they hate non-white conservatives.
I agree with you.
Have to make an example out of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what they call Larry Elder, the black face of white supremacy. He's a black guy. I thought that was crazy. Anyway, I want you to listen to this headline. There was a school evacuation, high school. It was a prank. Somebody sprayed something called fart spray. And this happened in Kentucky, and I guess it smelled like, sulfur or whatever it was, and it sparked an actual evacuation of the high school. Talk about a prank going wrong. Have you ever seen that? I know you work at a school.
No, I have not seen fart spray. I hope that doesn't catch on here. I walked into some bathrooms, where, oh, my goodness, you don't need the fart spray. It's the real deal, and I kind of wish I could evacuate out of there.
That's funny. Oh, man, thank you so much. I appreciate it, Sarah. Always good to talk to you. Big shout-out to everybody in Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. And we keep going. Let's go to our buddy Paul. Paul is in Zanesville, Ohio. Paul, go right ahead.
Hey, good evening, Rich. Well, now, didn't, how do you say it, Donald Trumpus L? How do you say that in
it's
El Trump?
Donaldus Magnus El Trompito, the 45th president of these United States. Donald J. Trump.
Yes, sir. I was so glad to see him trounce in that primary there. But didn't Donald Trump warn us about all these migrants coming in and how, now, I don't want all of them to take offense, but how he was going to, these countries are sending their scumbags, and so forth. And look what Hochul's doing in New York and so forth. I'm not saying it's all them. What happened to those 8 teenagers? I don't know if that was an inter-rival gang thing, or whatever, but it's going to get worse on that. But what I wanted to say, too, was, Trump warned us about this, and now we're dealing with international things that Trump had under control at one time, and Biden is weak. And I would be interested tomorrow night. I'm like going to get my popcorn out, for him to give the State of the Union address. Right. And, the world has felt emboldened since Joe Biden has taken office and his administration. I'm not going to blame it all on him. It's not just him, but I just think that Donald Trump, that's who I'm voting for, and all the undecideds and so forth out there. You better take a good hard look at what we're looking at, in the United States of America, because our country's going to hell in a handbasket, sir. And I'd like your thoughts.
Oh, Paul, thank you. I think you're spot on a lot of this stuff. I don't think the 8 kids shot in Philly had anything to do with illegal aliens. Likely that was, just street crimes. And it's unfortunate, and we're seeing too much of it. And again, Philadelphia had Larry Krasner as their prosecutor for a very long time. I think he might still be there. He might have retired, I think I read. But he was one of those that are through one of those organizations funded by George Soros and those grants that he put out there to get these prosecutors that would be what I like to call pro-crime progressive prosecutors that coddle criminals. And that's exactly what they did. And they're incentivizing the bad behavior, whether it's, the looting, whether it's the border crossing, all of it is being incentivized. And if people feel like they're going to be rewarded for their bad behavior, then they're going to commit lots more bad behavior. It makes all the sense in the world to do that. And ultimately, that bad behavior will lead to more bad behavior because you're getting yourself accustomed to the easy way out. And in real life, the easy way out doesn't always work. Sometimes a simple solution is great, but it's not always the easy way out. And I think this is part of the problem. Now, the other part of it is, Trump did a great job in yesterday with Super Tuesday. I think he did a great job. I think he's going to continue to, I think he got close to 1,000 delegates yesterday, so he's close to where he needs to be, or at least he's a lot closer than any other candidate out there. And he just, I think, needs to, there's people out there that don't appreciate him the way I do. I appreciate his bravado, his humor, all those things. But there's people that want him to be more robotic, more quote-unquote presidential. And my thinking is that he's been displaying that. I think he's coming across as way more presidential in the videos that I've seen. So I think we're going to see a more disciplined Trump moving forward, and he's going to get only even more votes, because it's going to come down to people saying, look, I might like him, but he's not disciplined enough. He's not this. I think we're going to see a change there. Those are my thoughts thus far, Paul.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, looking forward to this State of the Union address tomorrow night. Yeah. And as usual, excellent program, man. I also like the guy talking about business there, because my father and I ran a business for almost 30 years.
What kind of business?
So I enjoyed that too. Yeah, it was electrical contractors.
Oh, right. You've mentioned that, actually. I didn't know you guys owned the business, though. That's cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the State of the Union as well, where Joe El Baboso Biden's going to come out here and blame Trump for everything, or blame you and me, right? He blamed the gas stations when the gas prices went up. He's blaming the cereal companies and potato chip manufacturers for for shrinkflation because they're putting less product in the bags. Joe Biden will blame anybody but himself for his disastrous policies. And I remember a couple of years ago, I listened to him do the State of the Union, and all I could think to myself was, he sounds like Trump. He was talking about, he's like, we got to fund the police, not defund the police. I don't know if you guys remember that a couple of years ago, but that is what Joe Biden said. So he definitely knows how to pander to the crowd, and he's a very experienced politician. We're going to see how his performance is tomorrow. And we're going to have a great lineup of guests as well reacting to the State of the Union. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. And folks, are coming right back. The rest of your calls and more when we return. 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back, amigos. We continue with Open Phone America, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And let's see, where do we go? We go to Akron, Ohio, WNIR, and check in with Gary. Gary, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Well, the first thing I want to say is I listen every night, and I hear you tell your guests they are true gentlemen or gentlewomen. They are patriots, and they are scholars, and that describes you to a T.
Oh,
you have an outstanding show every night.
Thank you. Means a lot. I really appreciate it, Gary. That's very nice of you to say. Now, tell me your thoughts on Biden and the Houthis and this latest attack that killed 3 seamen aboard a commercial vessel.
This did not have to happen. This is a continuation of Barack Obama trying to appease the Iranians, and Biden just picked up where Obama left off. You had a retired general as a guest not long ago, and I can't remember the name because it just popped. I take notes, so I have it written down here someplace. I listened to your show the following day, and I take notes, and I call WNIR, and I talk to their hosts with information I get from your show.
We're always ahead of the game. That I could tell you because we're on, the last show of the day. We're kind of recap everything, and we're ready for you'll hear it here, and then you'll hear it again tomorrow. That's the truth. That's the beauty of late night radio.
And I will replay all of this tomorrow morning, and I'll take some notes. And when I call WNIR, I'll talk to them about what you talked about tonight. But so I don't remember the general's name, but it was a retired general. And he said in one afternoon, if Biden wanted to, he could put the Houthis out of business.
Mm-hmm.
Lock, stock, and barrel. This guy, it's obvious, this guy does not want to do anything to offend the Iranians.
He's deadly afraid, and you're right. Good analysis here. This appeasement of, and I think it's too soft of a word to say that we're appeasing the Iranians. It almost sounds like we're at the beck and call of the Iranians, right? That we are fearful of the Iranians, that we're somehow being bullied by the Iranians or extorted, because I can't imagine a scenario where to not rock the boat, look at all the boat rocking that's going on. We've got missiles going off every day. We've got the Hamas running amok. You've got craziness in Yemen. I mean, you tell me if the boat's not being rocked, Gary.
Well, look how long Biden let the Russians accumulate all those forces on the Ukrainian border.
Yeah, he waited till they had the entire army out there to say, "You just don't do anything."
And I agree with you. The word appeased is a little too light, but we're on the radio.
You're right. Yeah, no, I get you. It's really a sad day for America when you really look at so many of the foreign policy blunders that this administration has continually, I'm going to say, perpetrated against we the people. But that's where we are. And I mean, thank God we're in an election year, and the alternative is, whether some like him or don't like him, way better than Biden when it comes to foreign policy, at least in my opinion. I think we had a way more stable globe. Global security was better. And some have criticized Trump, saying he was too hard on China, and that, with the trade war is what created this kind of Cold War that we have now. I don't know that I buy that. I don't think China was going to not do what they do, whether Trump is there or not. I think China is out to take our lunch no matter what. And if we don't stand up to them, they're going to do a lot more than take our lunch. Gary, great talking to you. I could probably talk to you for another hour, but I got to take a pause right here. Folks, we're coming right back. We got Chicago, Pittsburgh, Montana, everybody lined up. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
All right, folks, it's the speed round. Let's go to Diane in Chicago. Who do you think Trump should pick or shouldn't pick as his vice presidential running mate?
Okay, well, you were saying that he's like a new, he has to be, he's never been a politician.
Who do you think he's going to pick, Diane?
On one hand, he may seem...
All right, hold on, Diane. It's the speed round, and you got to be speedy. Let's go to Dan in Pittsburgh, KDKA. Dan, tell me about your comment about Biden.
Biden, okay, well, this is a little bit ahead of St. Patrick's Day, but Joe probably doesn't know this, but after the Romans left Great Britain, the barbarians took over, and St. Patrick was originally from Great Britain. And he was going to Ireland, and he was captured by some barbarians. Now, they were white.
This is not the speed round either. You're killing me here. All right, Dan, thank you for your call. Let's go to Frank, Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Frank, you got to make it concise.
Thank you. I was looking at the EPA map of radon in the state of New Jersey, and it's just really high, just as bad as the county I live here in Montana.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. And that has lots of effects on people. It would explain why so many people don't want to exercise and have other types of maladies going on. Frank, thank you for keeping it tight. The music's in, and that means we got to go. Folks, in the speed round, we got to keep it tight. I hope I wasn't rude to anybody. We just got to honor the clock. Otherwise, it'll cut us off. I appreciate everybody's calls tonight. Great commentary from everybody. Looking forward to another live show tomorrow all across the country. Take care, good night, and God bless.